So when I left, again, I took a break, which I know is different because when we started Image, every other guy at Image at that point thought they could sort of straddle the fence, don't do their Marvel stuff and their Image stuff, and just in case Image didn't work, I've always been sort of too egotistical about, oh, of course it'll work, right? I mean, of course it'll work, but people have asked, would I go back and do stuff with Marvel and DC? Well, look, it's been 20 years, right? Out of everybody who left to go to Image, I'm the only one that's never gone back and done anything, right? Every other guy has done something. I find it an odd one. We've had these conversations before. I find it actually to be a conflict of interest. How can you be the vice president of Image Comic Books and do work for a direct competitor? In other occupations, that's actually illegal by law. You cannot be the vice president of GM and give some of your work and efforts to Ford. It's illegal, right? But we're goofy people, we're comic book people, we don't think in those terms. So, but to me, I was always regimental. I'm going, why on earth would I ever do anything else for a direct competitor? Now, did I like my time at Marvel? Sure I did. Did I like my time at DC Comic Books? Yeah. Did I like the people I worked with? Absolutely. Some of the kindest, nicest people I've met in comic books come from that era. But I keep telling people, my time at Marvel and DC is the equivalent of my time at high school. Did I like high school? Yeah. Did I get a lot of friends in high school? Sure. Did I have a good time in high school? Yeah. Do I ever plan to go back to high school? Never. It's in the past. It was something that I did as part of my progression moving forward. So, like Marvel, like DC, it's in the past. God bless it. Everybody out. Do I tell people not to work for them? No. As a matter of fact, I encourage them because those are big stepping stones. If you can go and start doing Batman or Captain America or something like that, that's cool. I mean, those are good gigs. I'm just saying, me personally, I just went, I'm done. I've now graduated from those classes, and we're going to go off and we're going to start our own classes called Image, and I've just been sort of tunnel vision with it ever since. So in the midst of teaching myself how to do American superhero comic book and doing their characters, I also invented a bunch of them. I mean, but the one that was always my favorite was this character called Spawn, and maybe I'll show it to you someday, the early pages I did. It was, the logo was Spawn with the skull and the A. He had the same markings on him. He had the cape and the cowl. He had the skull on his belt. He had the big M on his chest. I mean, about 90% of it is exactly what it looks like today. Very traditional looking superhero. The backstory of that was, it was just a guy who just wanted to live his own life. Just wanted to just be, didn't really want to be controlled by anybody. And so when 1992 comes and we're having our meeting and we're in the Mark Sylvester's Malibu house for our first official Image meeting, I go, hey, here's a guy who, my concept was, comic books are sort of about good and evil. So let's take the extremes of good and evil. Okay, that would be like heaven and hell and Satan and God. I mean, it's as big as opposite as you can get that we're taught. And so I go, well, let's just take it to those extremes instead of it being Dr. Doom kind of guy. Let's go bigger than that. And so I created a guy who comes from the pit of hell. He didn't want to be controlled by either side, just because it was a reflection of me. I'm not a religious guy, and I just wanted to live my life. And again, remember, we broke away to have creative freedom. So it was like we didn't want to be controlled by anybody. And the character was there, and go, well, what if there's a character from my point of view? What if I had this character that I created at 16 that I don't know if he will defeat the devil and be his own man, but if he ever does, he'll be one of the greatest heroes of all time. Other guys stop the guy with the ray gun and the guy that wants to take over America. This guy stops the devil himself. That's cool. That's a big one. So, and to me, what was way more important was sort of the quest of becoming a hero. I've said to people before, and this is applicable to Spawn, and Superman was always the most boring superhero to me because he was so perfect. He never made any mistakes. What was way more interesting to me is not being the hero. All of a sudden, I'm a hero. I get hit by a bolt of lightning. It's learning to become a hero. And so I always said that if anybody, if that accountant that you know got hit by a bolt of lightning and became the strongest person in the world, all he would be is a super strong accountant the next day. He wouldn't know how to stop the wars. He wouldn't know how to end poverty. He wouldn't know how to sort of fix, political wranglings globally. He wouldn't know how to do any of that. He would just be strong. But the question now becomes, now that he has the strength, can he figure out how to use that over time in a prosperous, good way, or is he too weak mentally and he will fail? You can sort of say it's just, again, an extreme case of athletes and celebrities. We've seen plenty of athletes and celebrities be put into a big giant spotlight and fail dismally, either through drugs or their own weaknesses. Something happens to them.
Any occupation.
And they prosper.
Any
and
industry.
People that we look up to. I think superheroes, to some extent, are the same way. That you get hit by the power. Now the question should become, will that person ever turn into a hero? That's way more interesting than whether they're actually going to be a hero in 30 years. So that's sort of Spawn. Spawn's always been a very raw, edgy, immature, unsophisticated character by design, because I think most of us will be making the same mistakes along the trials and tribulations that he's been making.